Okay, so before you continue on, I hope that you've watched part one. I had some time restrictions, so I wasn't able to upload the whole piece in its entirety. It's already a very rambly, discombobulated, unorganized video with a lot of different random bits of information. So I hope you have a chance to check out part one first. And now here's the second half. Thank you guys for watching.
I will say, I just want to, I feel like if I share these little mistakes with you, that will be helpful, because you could learn from my mistakes. So one of the things I used to do a lot is carry my pens clipped to like a string or my coat pocket or, on my collar. And I was shopping at a thrift store with this particular pen, which happens to be one of my absolute favorites. This is a wall pen with a signature nib. It has the tulip clip, which, I feel it's celluloid, jade green. It's beautiful. I love this pen. I feel like I just didn't realize how careful I should have been with my pens at the time. I was kind of like, well, they've already lasted 100 years and they still write. I think they're going to be fine. I'm definitely a lot more careful and cautious with my pens now, although I still do write with them because that's why I have them. I don't want them to just be sitting around because they look pretty. I want to actually experience them. Anyway, so this is one of my favorite nibs, and I actually adjusted the nib myself, and so there's like a little bit of pride there too, because when it came to me, it was really scratchy, and usually when you get a scratchy nib, it's simply because the tines are misaligned. And so I was able to realign the tine, and it's one of my favorite writers of all times. Anyways, so I had it clipped to my shirt. I was at a thrift store shopping for clothes, and I get up to the cash register and I pay for my clothes, and I go to sign the receipt with my pen, and I grab where my pen would have been, and it's just the cap. And it was another one of those moments where I was just like, try to hold back the tears because nobody is going to understand why I'm crying over a pen right now, but I need to have that pen. I need to find that pen. As I retraced all of my steps, I was super panicked. And finally somebody who worked there was like, hey, is this yours? And they had found my pen in the cuff of a pair of pants that I had tried. So it fell into the cuff. The nib was not damaged, the body was not damaged, but now I'm very careful. If I'm going to wear a pen on a lanyard or a clip or something, first of all, I don't think I would ever do it with a tulip clip again, just because I don't want it to break off. I will check constantly to see, okay, is this still screwed in? Because as you walk and move around, it can come unscrewed. The Schaefer Tuckaways are really hardy little pens, and they're generally pretty affordable. And they seem to be pretty easy to find. So this is still a pen that I will clip on to my shirt. Just like a pretty hardy little pen. So anyways, that's a good pen to look into. One of the things that I suggest when you're looking for, again, this is all over the place, I'm so sorry. There's just a lot of information. One of the things I suggest when you are looking for a vintage fountain pen, whether it's on eBay or Etsy or some other website, find the pen, read the description completely. Don't just glance over it. Check to see, has it been restored? Has the pen been tested? Does it write? Does it hold ink? These are really important bits of information. If there isn't a whole lot of information in the sales description, then check the seller's feedback to see, has there been any complaints? And check to see what other items they have in their store. If they have a bunch of other a variety of antiques and stuff, that not just dedicated to fountain pens, I would just be a little careful, because there's a good chance that they found a pen at an estate sale or something, and they recognize that it's a really beautiful object and they put it in their store full of antiques, but they may not necessarily know how to restore a pen. They may not necessarily know to check to see if it can write. So the sellers that have pens predominantly in their store, It's usually a pretty good sign that they specialize in pen restoration and whatnot. You will pay a lot more for a restored pen. That's just, it's a big it's a big part of the expense. You could get a vintage fountain pen for so cheap if you do the restoration yourself. But that's really hard to get into because there's so many different styles of pens, there's so many different bodies, there's so many different filling systems. So that's another thing that might just make the whole experience easier for you, is if you start off with something that has already been restored. That way you can experience it right away, because restoring it yourself might be really overwhelming. What I know about restoring fountain pens is like not even worth demonstrating, because it's less than that. I can replace a rubber sack, I can realign a nib, but that's about it. I can't restore a crack. I know how to put in a new pressure bar, but even then, that's like every pressure bar in every pen, they're like different sizes, and so you have to like, how do you know which size to get? It's just like, there's a lot. So maybe save yourself some hard knocks and get a pen that's already been restored, and make sure to research the seller to make sure that what you're investing in is a pen that will indeed write. I don't really have any tips for inks in vintage fountain pens. Really, I think it's up to you. There are certain inks that are just harder to clean. There are some inks that are damaging for your pen, but the majority of inks are going to be completely fine. Shimmering and sheening inks are fine, but they do require more cleaning, which then makes you think, well, do I want to put my 100-year-old pen through any more turmoil? Do I want to like keep having to like depress the lever bar, knowing that inside there's a delicate little piece of metal that may break the more I use it? That's another thing to consider. Some inks are really easy to clean out and maybe you worry less, but I think in general, I've always felt pretty comfortable, and everybody has like a different opinion. Some people are like, no, you should only write with vintage inks. No, you should only write with like Watermans and Parker Queen. Don't get creative with your inks, but I have not had any bad experiences with inks. Of course, I've never used iron gall inks. I've never used pigmented inks. But honestly, if you take good care of your pen, you'll probably be fine. Don't take my word for that, please. I don't know anything really. These are just my own personal experiences, and I'm not afraid to take a stab in the dark. I'm not afraid to like take that leap of faith, and I think that's a big part of it, is you just kind of have to jump in. I hope this was helpful for you. One of the pens that I do recommend to a lot of people that are wanting to get into vintage fountain pens but have no idea where to start, the Esterbrook J series, or in this is the CH series, or the purse pen, or the pastel pen. It has a lot of different names, but the J series, it's like generally the same thing. These were made, mass produced in the 1950s when fountain pens were kind of losing its momentum and the ballpoint was replacing the world of writing. And so Esterbrook was like, we need a niche, we need to find a way to stay in the market, to stay relevant. And so they started mass producing fountain pens, which I don't think had really happened up until this point. This is such a trusty workhorse of a pen that is really, really easy to find. They are everywhere, or at least I feel like they're everywhere. Relatively, considering like a vintage fountain pen. And the nibs are really cool because they're designed to come out as a unit, and they're all steel nibs, but all the nibs are numbered. So they have a huge variety of different nibs, and they're really easy to get a hold of. So you could buy like several nib units for your one Esterbrook and swap out nibs. This one is the 2556, which is a very fine line. There's other nibs, like there's stub nibs, and there's Greg nibs, and there's other ones that I'm blanking on, just a huge variety of nibs. and different sizes. So those are pretty easy to get. They are also really easy to restore. For like a vintage fountain pen, these are one of the more simpler fountain pens to work on. It does have a lever. It has a rubber sack on the inside, but it's a pretty easy pen to work on. So anyways, that's always a good. And the writing experience, they're such great little writers. These nibs are really, really well made, and they're super smooth. Take my word for it. I have a lot of them, and they've been really consistent. But don't take my word for it, because it's also really subjective. Really, it's up to you. It's your own personal experience. You could read about a pen and how it writes. It could be the same exact Parker Duofold Deluxe made in the same exact month by the same exact person, because most of these were made by an individual, not a machine. And it will be different. Each and every single pen will be different. So there's always going to be like a little element of jumping off of a cliff because you don't really know. You could read about how the body looks and how the nib generally writes, but you don't know until you actually have that specific pen in your hand and you're writing with it. It's crazy world to get into. It's just, there's so much, and I understand it's very overwhelming, and there's still so much that I don't know. But hopefully you'll find some of this helpful. This, by the way, is a blind cap and a button filler. So that's how you fill that little guy. I will post a link down to some YouTubers that have vintage fountain pens that I think are really great resources. Wasky Squirrel, Grandmia pens. Oh my gosh. I think I'll just post those links, and hopefully they'll help you. And I'll also post a link down below to a shop called Peyton Street Pens, which is it's nice to have like one consolidated source where there's just a huge variety of vintage fountain pens for sale, so you can kind of get an idea of the different models and the different companies and the different price points. So anyways, thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, let me know.